Knowledge in the building. Like, comment, and subscribe. So today I want to talk about the Louis Theroux and the Anthony Joshua documentary. Now, what did I actually learn from the interview? Well, we kind of already touched on certain things before about Anthony Joshua, but one thing I do like about Louis Theroux, he asks questions where he doesn't come across as intrusive, but he gets the most out of the interview. So he gets the interviewer to, or interviewee, to open up. And in some ways, you get more of an insight into the way the person thinks. And then with the questions that he asks, he kind of creates a narrative and a story to show you more of the insight into the person's personality and how they think. Now, from the overall first opening of the documentary, I got the impression that obviously what we already know about Anthony Joshua, that I don't know if he stumbled into boxing, but he kind of found his way into boxing through as a hobby, then having some kind of natural ability and natural talent, got guided in that direction by obviously his cousin, and then getting into the gyms to actually use his physicality and his youthful talent for strength, probably stamina, just general tenacity, to apply it to the discipline of boxing. So giving up certain vices and certain things that were leading him down the wrong path kind of made him steer to the right direction. But what I got the impression of is a kind of coming of age that happens with certain demographics of young boys. So you have a path and you have two choices. You can either go left and your life may not end up the way it ends up, or you can go right and your life might end up different to what it would be if you didn't go left. And it seems that he took the right path, but along the way there was bumps proceeding to the right path. But I get the impression that he's also split between how his family see him and how he sees himself, and how his peers see him, and how he has to portray himself and put himself across with his peers. So you get the kind of split personality, and that's what I get from Anthony Joshua when I'm watching this documentary, and just in general with the way he is. He's not really 100% one way or another. He's very neutral, he's very on the fence, he's very in the middle, especially with even questions that get asked him and certain ways of being and certain ways of like seeing things. He's never completely overall negative. You can see that there's some kind of venom and vitriol about the way people perceive him and what they say, and then the narrative that they paint. But he should defend himself more, I think, and not try and please everyone, and not try and sit on the fence and be neutral when you're not happy about certain things. And I get it, because you've been marketed from day one and you've been fed down a certain path and a certain narrative and a certain way of being, and you've been, how can I put it, manufactured in a way that you've been created to be this product. It's detrimental to actually what you actually really want to say. So when you do say what you really feel, you come across as either arrogant or upset or very kind of crass, and you kind of get the impression that there's like a power struggle in between your consciousness of how the public sees you and how you see yourself. And again, it's that kind of split personality that I get. It's kind of a sort of dissociative identity personality crisis kind of thing, or disorder that's going on within himself, because you can see who he is when he's in the ring and he's fighting. There's that spite, that aggression, that fighter, that person that wants to hurt the other person, you know, like the wrecking ball that everyone refers to up until the Ruiz fight. And then when that happened, he changed, and he had to change his style because obviously, it didn't go the way you wanted it to go. It went up to that point, up to that way at a certain point, but obviously, you got found out, and obviously, Ruiz had your number that night. But then you changed your style, you boxed, you learned strategy, you learned a different way to fight, and you beat him. And then ever since then, people are not happy that you're not the old AJ. You're this new AJ where you're more tentative, you're more cautious. But I counter that and would say if you get knocked down 5 times in a fight by a guy over 60 pounds, you're going to be cautious, especially if you've been dropped in a way where you've been concussed and you've still got up after getting dropped 5 times and you're still willing to fight on to the end of the fight in a 12-round fight to get your belts back and maintain your credibility and your marketability. It says a lot about you as a person. Yeah, the fight got stopped, but I'm not arguing that he got stopped soon. A lot of fighters probably would have got stopped a lot sooner, so the referee did give you as much chance as you could to continue, and credit to you, you got up, but it just wasn't your night. Either the wrong strategy or obviously taking on an opponent too late, and maybe arguably you should have done more of a homework on the person, but you did do what you normally do when you dropped him. You're the only person that you was the first person to drop him, barring that. But anyway, moving on to what other things that Theroux actually garners from the interview is there's a kind of sense of looking at Joshua as a person and not just a boxer, but even he kind of has his opinion of Joshua changing from the wrecking machine into the boxer that he become, because obviously he's more tentative and he takes more cautious approach and he's not as gung-ho. But I argue that things change as you get older and you realise one way is not the only way to do something. So it's just common sense that you change your thinking and the way you think about yourself and how you grow as a person. So anyway, I don't know if he was trying to do that to wind him up, but like it kind of got more of an answer out of Joshua where he even challenged Theroux and asked him if he was the same person he was 10 years ago, which is kind of true. As you grow, you change, So you're not the same person that you was 10 years ago. You're a completely different person. You know, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you look at things, just in general, people grow. We grow. There's a saying in it, you either adapt or become extinct, and that's what kind of happens to a lot of people because they're stuck in the past or stuck in a certain way of thinking and a certain mode, and they can't adapt to how things are now. So if that is your way of thinking and the way of being, you actually get left behind. That's why a lot of people that were in your life probably 10 years ago and the things that you were doing with them then, you thought you were on the same wavelength with them then, but like 10 years later you're not on that wavelength. You've grown, you've changed, and it's kind of not that you've changed and you left people. They've just not actually grown with you to come along on the journey with you, to progress on your journey with you, because that's what friends do. You kind of grow together and you feed each other the energy to progress, to grow as a person. If they don't grow, then they get left behind because they're not on your wavelength. That's the whole point of friendships. People have to be on your wavelength for you to be in harmony with them. Whatever it is you're doing, they have to be on board to support it, and same thing with you. You have to be on board to support it, so it works both ways. But anyway, a lot more things that I kind of garnered from the interview were that there's like an ongoing battle within Joshua to actually be different things to different people. And it's like he's split. You can see the split. It's like an identity crisis in a sense, because when he goes back to, I think it's his auntie's house, and he walked in, she knows him as Femi, and then obviously other people know him as Anthony. So you can see that the cultural side of things, where he's known in one identity with family, and then to the outside world there's the other identity, which is who he is as well out in the outside world. So there's kind of a split going on, and I argue again that that split actually carries on within his own community, with people that are in his demographic, with him being black and then with him being African. So there's that split as well, where you culturally around people that maybe have a different culture than you, but you can relate to them because you're black. But then obviously you've got your African culture heritage as well, and then you've got that split there where you're in between. The line may get blurred at certain points, but it's also different. So there's that kind of thing going on as well. And obviously I wouldn't say he's a quote unquote road man or street man or a bad person or like anything within them kind of stereotypes, where even though he says what he says about what he's done and he's being honest, I think that's just the product of the environment of where he is and what he's been around, and what you pick up when you see other people doing what they're doing. Because the story that he talks about, where he's driving and he has I think it's class B prohibited substances in his car, and he gets pulled by the police. He puts it down to obviously being black and other things and whatever, and maybe that's true, but he actually tried kidology and was saying that he represents the police officer that stopped him, and goes into this spiel where he's trying to con him and pull the wool over his eyes, but then eventually ends up in Reading prison. So then it takes the people that know him on another intimate level to help him out, to get out of that predicament, to get basically validation, and for them to basically come out to bat for him and get him out of that situation and get him back on track to Team GB. And the thing what's kind of ironic in a way about it is, maybe if it was anyone else, they wouldn't have got that chance. So maybe the fact that he knew that he had something, he knew he could get away with certain things, but maybe that was his last chance. Sometimes you have like a last chance before your path splits a certain way. So that was the sliding doors moment that Louis Theroux was going on about, where you have to choose, and obviously he chose the right path. He could have went left, but he chose right. So he went the right way. He went through the right door, so to speak. So he's lucky. And I think that's why he stayed with Rob McCracken for so long and owed Rob McCracken so much, because people couldn't understand why he kept saying he's loyal, he's loyal. And I think it's because he felt like he owed him his life. If he never had given him that chance and never pushed him to do what he needed to do, he wouldn't be where he is now, making the money what he's making and so forth. So in a sense, it's kind of like he saved him. So there's a savior complex thing going on, where you think you owe this person because they stopped you going down a certain path and it helped you get your life in order, and where you would have had another life if they never done what they've done. But I think you can only have gratitude for so long for somebody, unless how can I put it, they understand what it is you need as yourself as a person. So maybe in a sense he was like a father figure as well, and he needed somebody like that to guide him along the right path, to keep him on course, and that's probably what he needed, and that's what he got from Ron McCracken. But anyway, other things that Louis goes into just like how the general overall feeling is when he had the Franklin fight, what critics were saying, and how Joshua felt after the fight, and why he felt the way he felt. Now, arguably, I can say people say that he's mentally weak and he's gun shy and he's this and he's that. I don't get that. I kind of get the impression that I think he's just tired of people putting their labels and stereotypes on him and forcing a narrative of how he should be or how he should act and how he's supposed to be to represent the British public, in a sense, because they come out to watch him and they're paying money. But he's got to understand something as well. He doesn't actually have a concrete opinion on things in general. He kind of flip flops. So when he flip flops, people can actually kind of paint him or write a narrative where they can put their opinion or their way of thinking on him, because he doesn't have his own opinion, and he does have it, but then he quickly acquiesces to what other people think. So you kind of care too much about what other people think, even though you have your own opinion. But it's like you can't have your own opinion because of the way you've been marketed and the way you've actually been structured to be. So you can't be negative in any aspect. So because you're this role model and you're this person, it's like you don't have any say. But in a sense, I argue that it's your own fault, because there's some kind of crisis going on within yourself and your psyche of how you should be and how you should conduct yourself. And it's like a catch-22, because you can't really go back on it now. So when you do revert back to who you actually are and show aspects and bits of your personality of how you really are, you kind of get lambasted for that, because that's not how you've always acted in general. You only see it in bits, like in the ring when he's fighting, and possibly in certain kind of battle of words with certain opponents when they're doing face-offs and the gloves are off. So it's pretty repressed, and I think sometimes when he represses who he is because of the media image that he's kind of painted up and put out to the public, when he blows, he looks a bit, I don't know, like out of sorts, or a bit like, not cringy, but a bit weird. It comes across like he's not really there. I can't explain it, but it's like you're not being true to who you are. And I think that's what's happening in the interview. It's exposing that you want to say things and you want to do things, but you can't. And you can't because of the way you've actually conducted yourself and the narrative that people paint on you. And because you're a people pleaser and you're trying to please everyone and trying to be as neutral and Switzerland as possible, that you never have your own opinion. And even when you do have your opinion, you're not steadfast in it. So because you're not steadfast in it, when people have words to say to you, you can't really use anything in a strong way or harsh way to get your point across or your opinion across. So it's like, in a way, it's like you kind of mentally neutered yourself, so you don't have any balls, in a sense, of an opinion of what you should or shouldn't say. And it's sad, because I think Dillian White touched on this and said something about how he's fake, he's this, he's that. You kind of get that impression as well, because you don't really know, in a sense, where the line draws. You know something's not completely right, but is that just another aspect of his personality where you see more of that side of him, but he represses it because he has to market himself in a certain way. And like, I think when you try and put yourself out in a certain way and brand yourself because you have to be that way because of sponsors, because of image, because of TV, because of PR. You damage yourself when you actually let out who you really are, and then people don't know who that person is, and that is who you really are. Maybe they'll end up not liking you and not taking to that kind of character. So it can kind of be like, then they'll hate you even more. So it's kind of a catch-22. I understand it's frustrating. And then obviously the pressure that builds because of how popular you are and who you are and what you portray and your role models and this and that, it can kind of become too much. So you kind of like you're stuck. It's like you're in a loop, like a record that's scratching or CD that's stuck. It's like you're stuck between two tracks. You can't actually be who you want to be. So I kind of see from the interview and everything that Louis is saying, somebody that's kind of, I'm not even sure he enjoys boxing anymore. Even though he says certain things, you get the impression that he's just doing it now because it's a job and there's nothing else he knows that he can do. He has to do it because it's money, it's family, it's legacy, and you have to kind of get as much money as you can before it's over. But other things that Louis was touching on when he was talking about concussion, brain damage, the this, the that, and talking about the scans to the brain and how MRIs can't actually detect how much damage has been done to you. You can't really blame him if he wants to box and box more conservatively now and not get as much brain damage or possible head trauma or CTE damage later on down the line, where he's Swiss cheese and his brain is kaput, basically. Because I can't even get the impression that there's a little bit of damage from certain fights there when he laughs and jokes about things. It's like he's not really 100% a full shilling or completely there. You kind of get that, like, I'm not saying he's got concussion or he's punchy or he's got brain damage, but there's something not quite right. You can kind of see it, not from the original Joshua when he was younger and the way he was, and he's laughy, jokey more, but you kind of get that there's something not completely all there. So it just seems a bit odd, a bit off. And I don't know if that's damage or some kind of trauma or whatnot. And maybe that kind of constitutes with the way he thinks and the way he's stuck in between the two identities of what people want him to be and what he wants to be himself, and then what he has to market himself as well. So it's kind of bizarre, you know. And then when people have a go at him, you can't really go in at them or say things in a way where he sticks or commits to what he wants to do. He's like, I don't know, I'm not saying he's weak, but like, it's like he always cares what other people think, and that kind of dictates how he acts and how he will be. And that's not really how he should be. Not if he's the heavyweight champion of the world, not if he's a unified champion, not if he was the heavyweight champion of the world or he was the unified champion of the world. That's not really how you should be as a person, in the sense that you have to think about those things. And I think more so now that he's not that's why he thinks about it more so, and he's stuck. So it's kind of a vicious kind of way to be in between something. So it's like he's a bit lost. That's the impression I get. He's lost. He doesn't really want to fight anymore, and he's just doing it because that's all he knows. And there is nothing else, because it's going to be kind of a sad day when he retires, because I don't really know what he's going to actually do with himself. You can see without boxing, he may actually spiral. He doesn't really, it's like he will be lost without it. Same thing kind of with Fury. You can tell when he retires, it's going to be hard for him. They're going to have to kind of reinvent themselves again and figure out what it is they want to do with the life, the rest of the life, because this is only a short period where it would define what happens in the later life. So anyway, it was actually a good interview to watch and a good documentary, and Louis Theroux is pretty smart. So anyway, if you get the chance to check it out, anyway, leave your thoughts in the comment section, like, comment and subscribe, And that is another one from Knockout Legends. Peace.